Importantly, they have shipyards that are bigger. We, compared to the Chinese, don't have what could be considered a large yard.
Who is building a majority of the new ships that are ordered globally between the United States and China?
China is by far building most of them. In some cases, like railroads and MPPs, are building virtually all of them. The United States produces about 0.1% of global shipbuilding, but none of our ships are built for export. They're all domestic.
So the Chinese commercial fleet is more than 5,000 vessels. Ours is less than 100. And so it seems to me like we have a big problem on our hands. But thankfully, you did offer us a glimmer of hope in your testimony. And you said that in maritime system determined by reliability, access, and stability, our advantages are decisive. And so what gives us an advantage by those metrics, and how can we capitalize on those advantages?
Thank you, sir. The Chinese economy, the Chinese process is very state-centric and very command-driven, and that gives them a lot of ability to marshal resources and direct activity as they've done. However, the weaknesses there are they don't deal with change very well. The Schumpeterian creative destruction that is a hallmark of the U.S. economy, and we've kind of lost touch with, are things that Chinese simply can't deal with. So what we need to do is change the terms of competition with China to one that favors us, which is dynamism, innovation, that sort of thing, because they do not deal with that very well. We can, and that's how we can beat them. This is not a lost cause. We can do this.
So what do you see as the biggest regulatory barriers affecting our maritime industrial base, and what progress has the administration made in removing those barriers?
The regulatory challenges are twofold, so I'll start with shipyards. In order to compete in international shipbuilding at scale on the way we need to build new ships. New shipyards. We cannot build ships if we don't have the shipyards, so we need to build shipyards first. That is an imperative, so things like permitting reform, that sort of stuff has to be done. We need to restructure the way we do marine financing, which we're working on, those things. In terms of the U.S. flag fleet, we still suffer from a regulatory burden that needs to be changed. Unlike the rest of the world, we have two systems of governance rather than one. The rest of the world just has IMO, SOLAS kind of thing. We have IMO, SOLAS, and then we have Coast Guard on top of it. On the other hand, that extra layer of regulation produces nothing in terms of safety and things like that. I use as a proxy for that things like the Paris MOU, where the Chinese are, I believe, 12 or 14, and we are 22nd. So they perform substantially better than we do, even with this extra regulatory burden. So we need to deal with that, and that process is starting. The reflag process is way too cumbersome. Gap analysis, for instance, is a very expensive, time-consuming process that if we wanted to reflag on our own, we would not do. So lots of things that can change to help us.
Rear Admiral Campbell, the Coast Guard has had challenges carrying out major acquisitions in the past, and H.R. 1 included $14 billion, as you know, in funding for new Coast Guard cutters. What steps are you taking to put the Coast Guard in a position to spend that money efficiently?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. As I stated earlier, I believe we are off to a great start with our shipbuilding program, executing the programs of record that we already had in place. So with that $14 billion towards our shipbuilding programs, we have been able to fund, we will be able to fund, as I mentioned earlier, both the first and second polar security cutter in full, as well as a big chunk of the third polar security cutter. I failed to mention earlier, but our OPC Stage 2 program, we've already started construction on the first two ships, but there's enough funding in that bill to allow us to basically buy out the remaining options for the completion of Stage 2, which will get us a total of 11 ships from that stage. and having the opportunity to buy those buy out all those options at once should help us to be, and the shipyard to be, a lot more efficient as we move forward, being able to forecast demand signal and knowing that they have those on contract. Additionally, the Arctic security cutters ships are already on contract as well, and I talked about those. We're distributing those through actually four different shipyards. As I mentioned earlier, 2 of them initially will be built in Finland, but then we're going to onshore that to enhance our shipbuilding, ice-breaking shipbuilding capacity in the United States. So I think we're using those dollars wisely, and really appreciate the support, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I now recognize the gentleman from California and my partner on the SHIPS Act, Mr. Garamendi.
And as you went through, I think I finally punched it hard enough. When you started the hearing, you opened up an important part of this. The Navy has trouble building all the ships we need, on time and on cost. The domestic shipbuilding industry is essentially the Jones Act. The Ships for America Act and the Maritime Security Program that was put out by the administration addresses a fundamental national security problem and positions the United States to once again reemerge as a full-on maritime country. We will have, with the SHIPS Act, the opportunity to meet the issues that Mr. Carmel has put forward, and Admiral and Mr. Potter, you put forward, by providing a strong domestic base for the manufacturing and just as important, for the operations of the ship. So the full SHIPS Act addresses the totality of issues that we need to put in place and address to rebuild our maritime industry. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your leadership on this. I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the text of the SHIPS Act.
Without objection.
And also enter into the record a section-by-section review and explanation of each of the sections of the SHIPS Act.
Without objection.
And, of course, my brilliant opening remarks also to be entered into the record, and I'll cut them short